And for anyone watching in the future, that was because is being streamed on Memorial Day weekend. Nothing terrible happened in the news around this stream time that I know of.
I mean, lots of terrible things happen in the news, but nothing specifically relevant to a moment of silence.
Yeah.
Um.
So I see we have had Amiga Nuts and Dog in the chat. So hello if you're still there. And of course, hello to anyone who is lurking and or may be watching in the future. Now, this week was a surprise fifth Sunday in May. So, we're continuing the train going by discussing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Which, hits surprisingly hard for, a comedic space opera about space Jesus committing deicide.
That's a way of putting it.
Yeah.
Deicide, patricide. There's no Holy Trinity there.
Yeah.
Tried.
Well, egocide.
Okay, yeah, there's your Holy Trinity.
Yeah. And I mean, it is fitting that in Guardians of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 does focus more on Gamora and Nebula and Yondu. Because while Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 was a mommy issues movie, Volume 2 is a daddy issues movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, without doubt.
Yeah.
And the daddy issues are not small ones.
Yeah.
Oh, no. When you're... I mean, most people have normal sort of daddy issues. These are galactic daddy issues.
Literally, yeah. Or not too much daddy didn't hug me as... Yeah.
or well, to quote Peter Quill, of course I have issues. That's my father.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And hello to Tuscan Oxen. I'm sorry, I just have to highlight this comment.
Mm-hmm.
I heard mommy issues. I'm here.
This is valid.
Yeah.
Too valid.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that the plot doesn't focus, gives a lot less screen time to Drax, because Drax is essentially the dad of the group.
Yeah, he's the boomer dad of the group. Let's be absolutely clear here.
Yeah.
You need to find a woman who's pathetic like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and do as we usually do. Well, actually, hold off. There is one thing I need to close off from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, because it crossed my mind after the stream, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not mentioning it.
Go on.
But of course, Quill sees his mother when Gamora says, take my hand, because in the Freudian sense, Gamora is his mother.
Mm.
Can we leave Freud out of this, please?
Yeah, that's why I'm sorry I had to mention it, but now that it's mentioned, it
Okay.
can be over.
Now I will never get that. I will
okay,
never get that out of my
problem
life.
with that
Okay,
Freud is
if
a
you
hack.
if you carry that though, he's Oedipus in so many ways when you take account of
I'm
his
no longer
version.
rooting for Quill and Gamora to have a relationship now.
No, think about it. If Gamora's the representative of his mother and he kills his father so he can be with Gamora,
so you're saying
is...
so you're saying Peter Quill is a complex character?
Yes.
In an Oedipal sense.
Yes.
Well, I suppose he does kill his father so he can be with Gamora, but to an extent. But
yeah, so if you take Gamora as representative,
well, he'd have at least he'd have a chance of being with Gamora, because at least Gamora would be alive, because as we know with this one, Ego, which is the most fitting name for this fucking villain ever. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is his name in the comics too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So from what little I remember of the Marvel cosmology, because like once you leave Earth, you get into some deep lore shit when it comes to Marvel. Ego isn't really so much as a villain. He's just kind of there.
Ego's a celestial, so
yeah, no, like
he's original.
No, he's just kind of there as a living planet.
Yeah.
Like the only comic I can remember reading that actually had Ego in it was an issue of the Silver Surfer, where Galactus tried to eat Ego, and the entire comic was Ego and Galactus duking it out.
Planet versus galaxy.
Yeah.
No, Galactus is a giant being who eats.
Don't eat my linguistics jokes, Ring.
If you are going to eat them, because it's Guardians 2, eat them in the form of Pac-Man.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess I guess I have. This is an important question.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning of this stream for everyone, and that is, who is your David Hasselhoff?
I love how both Ring and I were the ones who laughed at that.
Yeah. So you're saying that you want us to air out our daddy issues on the stream discussing a movie about daddy issues?
Yeah.
I'd rather not, thank you very much.
Yes, pass. We'll be here way too long, and listen, at the moment, my issues mean that I need therapy. If I start talking, you'll all need therapy.
Yeah, Tusk, while it doesn't have Deadpool in it, one, it's not a thing that I really blame the movie for, seeing as how rights issues. We're still a thing, and we're still a thing. And two, while it may not have Deadpool in it, it does have the best Stan Lee cameo.
Yes, that I was hoping we'd talk about that, because we finally get the Stan Lee cameo somewhat explained to us.
Yeah. But we'll put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start as the first Guardians did, with a flashback to Earth.
Yeah.
Where Ego seduces and presumably in that in the after that scene fades to black, impregnates Meredith, or shall we call her Mary?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Please stop.
Oh, okay.
Linked up with the Christian allegories.
You actually, to go back to your whole thing, mummies thing.
Yeah.
In the comic books, Star-Lord actually dates a woman called Meredith, the same name as his mother.
That's
Well, I
Freud-
mean,
okay. So basically,
Freudian-
what we're
very
saying is we're going to go
Freudian
Freudian
again,
or
very Freudian.
Christian.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you know, in
So
the
what were you
comics,
saying about Jesus?
yeah, in the comics, Star-Lord also had a fling with Kitty Pryde. So
And it has a sentient spaceship.
Okay. I love how the name Kitty Pryde made you say sentient spaceship, and we've already mentioned Hasselhoff.
yeah.
I just, yeah, that connection that was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about Jesus because I don't want to talk about Freud.
Freud and Oedipus.
But okay, so while we get it, so just for the just so we can get it out of the way. Here's a potential reading. And of course, I say a potential reading because one, this is probably not the intended, the reading intended by James Gunn. Two, media is subjective. What you take out from it, what you take out from it. All readings are essentially potential readings.
Yeah. Well, once the medium's offered out there for the people take what they want from it, and it's no longer entirely the purview of the author or the creator. It's channel punching bag.
Yeah. Something. Yeah, something.
Let's get that out of the way.
Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah. Something. Death of the author. Something. Hedwig's theme.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. Please don't copyright strike. Okay. So here's the thing. This is like I know I made the joke in the announcement tweet, and I also made the joke in the description and the opening comment, where Guardians Volume 2 is a movie about Space Jesus committing deicide. But so here's like the rundown of this potential reading for Guardians Volume 2. So Ego is essentially a god. Ego is a celestial. And he and his purpose in life, he went out into the universe and found life and found it wanting. So his purpose in this narrative, his self-assigned purpose in this narrative as, a deity who has, forever to spend and must do something with his eternity, decides to make all life unto him. And to do this, he needs progeny. So he
he needs a messiah.
Yeah. So he descends to Earth, impregnates Meredith Quill, and his plan hinges on his progeny, his both God and man progeny, to make sacrifices in order to bring the universe into his, into
his own image.
Yeah, into his own image. And then, of course, the difference between the biblical narrative and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is Quill rebels and, once again commits deicide, saving the universe from Ego, who in this reading of the film can be seen, can be placed in as an allegory for Yahweh.
Yeah.
Okay, now I've explained how this could be seen in that light. We're going to put that off to the side. We have discussed it. Unless you guys have final thoughts on that reading.
Not massively, no. I mean, it kind of is what it is. It is in that respect. That's very much how to read it. It really.
It could also be seen as a thing of Zeus killing his father, the Titan.
Yeah.
King Kronos, yeah.
So the gods killing the Titans, and I mean, you find this in all forms of fiction where you steal things from popular culture and you insert them in and bastardize them because it keeps people interested.
So I will say, and hashtag not a class. Oh, we do have a classicist.
Look, any overpowered bad guy with a progeny who is supposed to stop them will borrow from a messianic mythos of some sort.
Yeah.
Okay. It just will, because that's the plot.
It literally is the plot.
Child obeys or child rebels.
What's your take on it being an interpretation of Zeus Kronos? And actually, Ego did eat all of his
other progeny.
Yeah.
It's far closer a reading to Zeus Kronos than I think it is to Joshua Yahweh.
Yeah.
With the classics, they always get mangled in the retelling anyway. I've seen worse.
It's Zeus Kronos, but with better music.
Yeah.
I don't think it's entirely Zeus Kronos unless you take the rest of the Guardians to be
the other gods,
the Olympians.
The other Olympians,
which kind of feeds into the found family trope.
Yeah. Which is, kind of the main theme of the series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole adopted father subplot line is there's
of
nothing
course that comes back to, because doesn't Zeus get thingy with his sister?
It's Zeus. He gets thingy with everyone.
Gets thingy with Zeus, basically. Well, you could possibly look at Ego there as well. But he's more in line with Ego. To be Ego will probably.
Well, I mean,
if in a later episode you find out that Gamora's father was also Ego.
No. So. Well, I mean, Quill is canonically a man whore.
Yeah.
You, man who has lain with an Ascavarian.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, Quill is an homage to Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. He is so is.
But yes, you can also... I do think there's scope for a Zeus Kronos reading in it. However, I say that with the caveat, don't take it too far.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you couldn't. But it's the same thing. Like I mean, you could... There are... like kind of Osiris sort of things there as well with the Masonic, the Messiah type of references. I mean, any of those stories are going to come out very similar.
Well, this is the thing. In all mythos across history, be it monotheist, polytheist, or anything, duotheist, anything in between, if there is a Messiah, because there is a who has to be a savior, the savior either fights or sacrifices.
And Quill had already been shown to be the savior in the first movie because he could hold the Infinity Stone. And he was able to.
Yeah.
And I can I just say, I think the Bible would have been improved 110% if the line had been in there of God talking to one of Jesus' disciples and, yes, Peter, I have a penis.
It would have settled a lot of theological debates, I'll give you
that. It would have, yeah.
Okay, so...
But not necessarily the circumcision one.
Ego reveals to Meredith that he had been planting, that he had planted himself on Earth, both literally and metaphorically. And then, we have the Marvel logo, and it opens on the planet of the sovereign citizens.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. Just the fact that we got sovereign citizens in there is that alone is a great pun in itself.
Yeah.
I was always I was just waiting for one of them whenever they were on there to sort of say, we are traveling.
But and in a mirror, in a mirror to the first Guardians movie, where we had a flashback to Earth and then an opening with a dance sequence. We have an opening with the dance sequence here.
Can I just say how much I love this whole intro to the movie of because obviously there's the whole thing of the joke there of like Rocket trying to set up the stereo. So Quill likes music when he's like Quill say, no, I actually kind of side with Drax on this one. This isn't really important at this moment. Like,
and then then he winks with the wrong eye.
But I think this is the moment as well where everyone who watches this movie kind of falls in love with Baby Groot.
It is.
And Baby just Groot is amazing. It in, and then we got Mr. Blue Sky playing and him dancing whilst they're fighting this monster again.
Yeah.
And
this is so perfect.
And the camera, like in most movies, the camera would be focused on the fight.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's focused on Baby Groot dancing around and
avoiding getting hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then each of these, each of the other Guardians have a brief moment in the opening credits of interacting with the dancing Baby Groot.
Great. Yeah.
And I have to say, Drax's one is the best because that's a callback to the.
A callback to the.
I think that does just highlight what the priorities of these films are. The priority is fun with these films. These films are not. Yeah, they have their philosophical undertones and their lessons because they're basically Disney movies, so they've got to have a moral, haven't they, of some sort? Don't at me.
Yeah.
But
Disney's movies all have a moral.
I mean, it's not always the best moral, but
it's not always the best moral or the best message, but Marvel hates trauma survivors.
I was going to mention a particular Disney movie, but I won't because I think it's unmentionable. So we won't go there.
That could be anyone in a long list.
I'm thinking about one with a Brer Rabbit in it.
Oh.
The one that was put into the Disney vault, never to be spoken of again, which is why I'm going to mention Song of the Fucking South. Admit to your shame, Disney. Warner Bros. Did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having said that, I love the character of Brer Rabbit, but the rest of the movie is dreadful.
Yeah. I wasn't allowed to watch that, and I didn't realize until I was an adult why.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I had a children's book of Brer Rabbit, and I never realized what the rest of the movie was like because all the bad bits aren't in the book.
Yeah. But anyways.
Sorry, I digress. I apologize.
So.
Seriously, I've closed my window and I can still hear them yelling outside.
I can actually hear them from here.
I can hear them going outside, yeah.
I should go to my window now, open it, and shout out, "Oi, they can hear you in Australia. Calm down."
Yes.
Please do.
No, I don't want to break through my window.
They can hear you in Australia and in Montana.
Yeah.
They can hear you in Australia and in Montana, yeah.
So, anyways. But yeah, though it is it and we will kind of circle to this, as we go through the, once we get to the end of the movie. But in a way, the entirety of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is kind of a subversion of the pattern set up in Guardians 1. In which, in Guardians 1, you'll have a heavy dramatic moment subverted by fun and comedy.
Yeah, here the fun and comedy is subverted by the heavy dramatic shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a subversion of the subversion of the subversive ideas.
Yeah.
Subversion section. Did I say that 5 times fast?
Subversion section.
A subversion within a subversion. That's like 16 subversions. Yeah. So, anyways,
we're almost memeing ourselves now.
Yeah, we have, the fun fight with the interdimensional beast who wants to, eat the batteries.
Yeah.
The Annulix batteries.
I must say, I love how we're talking Guardians of the Galaxy, and every comment in the chat is Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you talk about sci-fi on YouTube.
Yes.
It is.
That's it. They have to talk about an inferior Disney sci-fi franchise here.
Yeah.
But they're both Disney canon.
Yeah.
It's a good thing Badger is into the
just
chat.
checking for a Badger here right now.
Okay, but okay, but if they're both Disney canon, can I take a canon to Disney?
Oh.
I'm not a Star Wars fan.
I think we'd all like to take a canon to Disney for various reasons.
Yeah,
and,
I don't know if Star Wars is the reason I would take a Dick Cannon to Disney. I could think of many other better reasons.
Oh yeah,
listen. Let me tell you something about Star Wars. I saw bits of it as a kid. I was so put off that not even the idea of Mads Mikkelsen being in it made me sit down and watch one of the movies.
And
I don't think you understand. Not even Alan Rickman could make me watch those movies.
And
Noodle.
Fair enough, Sam. Glad to see you in the chat.
Yeah, we're always glad to see you, Sam.
And I'll just say, Noodle, you must do what you feel is right, of course.
Am I supposed to understand this reference?
No, but the other guys will.
Do or do not. There is no try.
So, anyways,
I know what Yoda is. I'm not completely confused.
and of course, we, during the course of this fight scene, we learned that Drax has rather sensitive nipples. And that he does the very typical barbarian thing of, I'm going to run inside it and try and cut my way out.
Yeah.
I just love the footage of that. Because
yes, I have slain the beast single-handedly.
Totally oblivious to the fact that everyone else saved his ass.
Yeah.
I have a god.
And we get,
That's definitely the hubris of Hercules moment.
Yeah, it is.
And so, we get introduced to the Sovereign, who are a genetically engineered race of stuck-up perfectionists.
Mm-hmm.
They're bureaucrats, basically.
Yeah.
They're galactic bureaucrats.
Now I need a galactic episode of Yes Minister.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
that could be fun.
And of course, during that, we get a bit of, Quill doing some Quill being Quill.
We joined the Federation to play the Klingons off against the Vulcans.
Yeah. But anyways, Quill does his Quill thing by trading some innuendo between
the High Priestess and
yeah.
And then suddenly realizes that Gamora is watching him, and he's like, "Oh, no,
Yeah.
And Rocket, as only Rocket possibly can, screws it for all of them.
Yeah.
It's Rocket. This is his job.
Yeah. Rocket is being the, misanthropic asshole that he is.
But we know he's better than that. That's what the entire first movie was about.
Rocket is the chaotic, neutral friend that you didn't necessarily want to have.
So his arc in the first, in the first movie was him letting go enough to, to care about helping people when he has self-interest.
Yes.
His arc for this volume is going the rest of the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he has to start off where he left off, where he cares about other people, provided he can get something out of it. And if he can get something extra out of it, he'll go that extra mile.
Yeah.
Even if it endangers all his friends' lives.
Well, and if they're dicks to him, he'll get his back.
Oh, hell yeah. I don't think he loses that one though. He is very much on the I'm gonna get you back if you're a dick, even later on.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a bad trait though.
Yeah.
No. And he's a lot better with it later on. Like
Rocket is the character. He's not the kind of character who's going to let a slight or an insult go.
Honestly, I think Rocket is the
will.
character who has the most growth of all those characters.
Yeah.
From Rocket from the beginning to Rocket who you see in
Endgame or what? Yeah.
Rocket in Endgame is not the same character you see in the first Guardians movie. Well, he's still the same character, but I mean, he is so grown and matured as a character.
But I think, obviously, in this particular scene as well, that what it's established in this part of the plot of the film is that they did this job for the Sovereigns to get their hands on Gamora, not Gamora's sister, on
Nebula.
And I think Nebula. Obviously in the first film, she's just she's kind of the henchwoman to Ronan, really.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. If you just watch this, there's not a lot about Nebula you really learn in the first film.
Yeah.
This film
Nebula's
very
the
much
other character who has a heap of growth.
establishes Nebula as a character, I think.
Yeah. Like in the, Guardians franchise's D&D campaign analogy, Volume 2 is where Yondu and Nebula go from being NPCs to PCs.
And of course, when you do that, one of them inevitably dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But only after you've built up enough of a character for them that there's angst when they do.
Yeah.
Because Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which obviously we'll get to that. This movie does,
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of character growth, this is Nebula and Rocket's movie for character growth.
Yeah. And of course, Nebula and Gamora will work out their sister issues in this movie because their sister issues are their daddy issues.
Okay, so what we're saying is it's Guardians of the Galaxy, subtitle Family Therapy.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of is, yeah.
And of course, in the escape from the sovereign planet, we can see that despite them being together as a team and as friends, they do need therapy.
All found families need therapy. That's why they're found families.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, because we obviously screwed the plot along. Also, we get to the point where the Sovereigns find out Rocket has stolen these things, and they're now chasing them. And there's the classic line from Drax, Rocket stop. He's like, "Oh no, I have no idea why they're chasing us." After he's given, and then you get the whole, just the bloody childish, and it's Gamora always pointing at dick measuring contest between Rocket and Quill. But arguing over the controls.
But before we get into that, we also learn that the Sovereign consider themselves so superior that they won't actually field any troops, that all their fighters are remote controlled.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love how it's shown because it's basically like a video game arcade.
Yeah, it's not so much the visual, it's the sound effects of like the old 80s style sort of video arcades. Like you hear. That's what makes that scene.
Yeah. Well, and all the scenes in which they're dealing with the fighters.
To be fair, a lot of the stuff like that was very similar to arcadey type stuff in the first Guardians of the Galaxy as well.
Yeah.
But it had that. It had literally. Anyone's ever went into a video arcade in the 80s or 90s, and I mean I haven't been in. I don't even think arcades are still a thing as much these days. But you went in it. It was this. All the sounds were. Perfect. It just
Like there's someone playing Space Invaders in the corner. There's coins dropping. There's music coming from somewhere, and overlaid by like low level chatter. It's perfect.
And then of course you have the crowd of people around someone who's just killing it at a game.
Yeah.
So if anyone's ever seen the movie Tron, where everyone's gathered around Jeff Bridges' character whilst he's just destroying it on that game, Space Paranoids.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's like.
But yeah, so Rocket and Quill have an ego measuring contest as they're trying to go through the quantum asteroid field.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about science, but I have concerns.
Space weirdness.
Yeah.
For me, it's just any of this stuff. I'm not a science guy. I'm just like, just fucking suspend your disbelief. Just go for the fucking ride. That's just
it's sci-fi. Very little sci-fi is close to any of the science.
Far more sci than sci.
Well,
yeah.
Well, it's like again, look. Hey, listen. You're gonna complain about the physics in Guardians or whatever. Then you better complain about, if you're gonna get het up on that. Then. Look, pretty much any sci-fi series. Star Wars has got a shit ton of fuck physics.
Why do you think I can't sit
Star
through
Wars
it?
is
But can I just point out? I am not being hypocritical by pointing out the poor physics. We spent 20 minutes last week figuring out how a Walkman would work in space.
Yeah.
So,
how to charge it. That was the big thing.
and of course, while they make the perilous trip through, tearing the ship to shreds because of the sabotage due to the back and forth from the ego measuring contest. Ego. Well, one, the Sovereign just went around. Apparently, their ships were much faster.
Yeah.
And two, we get our first introduction to Ego, who apparently has the bigger ego.
Well, we definitely know where Quill gets it from.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. A 1-inch man.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd be bigger if he were closer. Yeah, that's how eyesight works.
These are small. Those are far
away.
Yeah.
And I choose to believe Glinna did not write that line.
Though we did though we do get a look into Nebula's trust issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In regards to the Yarrow route. Because it is, in fact, not ripe.
No comment.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I think the thing with Nebula for me, she just seemed. I never related to her as a character.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, but she was a bit meh. And she was a bit too. When she finally started standing up for herself, it felt a bit too little too late. And by then, she was already established in my mind as a write-off. So I wasn't invested.
I think that was partly the point of her character. I think that the idea of her character was to show that nobody was beyond redemption.
Yeah. Like
but this is what I mean. It's her story's a redemption arc, but I didn't care because she was just so. Because I hadn't bonded with her as I had the other characters. I didn't particularly care whether she was.
I think that's because her redemption arc doesn't actually finish in Guardians 2. It's continued on, and that's.
I will also say, in like specifically talking about Guardians 2, it's less of a redemption arc and more of a becoming a person arc. like becoming an independent person arc, because you'll notice the way she's written and acted becomes progressively less flat and robotic as she goes through the movie.
Yeah, no, she does. And the problem is she spends so much time before that arc begins that by the time it starts, I'm just looking and I've already given up on her.
Yeah.
And I think it's sad as well, because she's a good character, but I wasn't as interested in her. She felt a bit like the sort of wet blanket. She's the Daphne of the gang. You know,
they are the Scooby Gang, aren't they? Does that make Groot Scooby Doo?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she's a bit of a Daphne, and I didn't gel. I mean, all power if you love her, but that's just my personal opinion on that. But yeah, they are the Scooby Gang.
Also,
they legitimately are, which makes Rocket Shaggy.
This tracks.
Yeah. Also, Groot is a vicious little shit.
Baby Groot,
no, Baby Groot is a vicious little shit. Like, okay, so the bit with the Ravagers is understandable because they freaking tormented him.
Yeah.
But
I love that too.
Like, even beforehand, like, even from the beginning of the movie, he's picking fights with the little rat things.
Yeah, that's true.
He has PTSD.
So, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
That was like, sure.
Yeah, welcome to Media Musings, where
we make puns out of mental health issues to cope with life.
To cope with all having one.
No, well, I was gonna say, welcome to Media Musings, where where you get to watch me make Noodle question why they married me.
Jeff's right.
I don't question why I married you.
Scooby-Doo, but Baby Groot is Scrappy-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff's right. Because Scrappy-Doo is a little shit.
Yeah, Scrappy's a little shit.
Yeah.
But then who does that make Drax?
Fred?
Gamora's clearly the Velma character.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then...
Well, then that...
Sorry, I've just seen Scubber telling me off in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. So on one hand, Quill would be Fred because... Oh, no, wait. Fred's banging Daphne, not Velma. Never mind.
Yeah. But, okay, but if we take the actual Guardians, the Guardians themselves, as the gang, then you've still got... Okay, if Gamora is Velma, then that would make Drax Daphne?
No, actually, no. Okay, here it is. If you just take the core Guardians as the Scooby Gang, Groot is either Scooby or Scrappy-Doo, depending on how old he is.
One.
Yeah. Rocket is Shaggy.
Actually, Rocket could be Daphne.
No.
No.
Rocket is
definitely a stoner. Don't at me.
Yeah, Rocket is.
So, Gamora is Velma.
Velma, yeah.
Drax is Fred, the somewhat lame but ultimately more responsible than the rest member of the group.
The
They're
dad
not quite
friend.
as smart.
which makes Quill the Daphne, the one who really only brings eye candy to the group.
Yeah.
Poor Quill. There is a Santa, but his name was Ego in this universe, Ox.
Yeah. And you didn't really like the presents he left.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Now I need to do that picture.
So, we meet Ego and Mantis on the planet that they crash land on.
Mm-hmm.
And because the ship is so utterly demolished, they decide to do something you should never do.
Never split the party.
Yeah, they split the party. Where Quill, Gamora, and Drax go off to Ego's planet, which we later learn is actually just Ego.
There are implications in there that go with your Freudian reading that I'd rather not discuss, please. Because if we're going to Ego and we're going to land on, what part of Ego do we land on?
Well,
the hard part. Right, I'm sorry.
No,
Damn it, Ben!
No,
I opened the door and flashed a neon sign at you to walk through.
Yeah, I am not blaming you, Jen.
You set that up.
Yeah, no one can blame Jen for taking that bait.
I mean, you tried to bowl a googly, but you tossed it right up there and I smacked it to the boundary.
Yeah.
That we had to do a cricket reference there because normally people make a baseball reference.
Yeah. But that's not cricket. Baseball references aren't cricket.
I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling guardians.
The thing is, I was almost half expecting something like that at the end of the first movie.
Yeah.
I just want to see this character with a sheet over it, and Quill walks up, pulls the sheet off, and it's Thanos.
Yeah. The Galactic Ghost was Thanos the whole time.
That tracks more than it should.
It really does.
So are we basically saying that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a Scooby-Doo, are you? Is this what we're saying now?
At least the Guardians bit.
I've your whole messianistic analogy is gone now. It's Scooby-Doo. Guardians of the Galaxy is now Scooby-Doo.
Or rather, Jesus is Daphne, confirmed.
That joke is never going to make sense to anyone who wasn't here right now.
Yeah.
Yogi?
Morning, Groot.
Yeah.
Puppy power.
Okay. Let's try
Can
and get
we
this.
say rocket power in that voice, Jeff?
So let's try and get this back on rails.
Yeah. So I said they're going off to the Ego's planet.
Yeah.
And they said that one of the funny scenes, the whole thing where you get, I suppose it's an introduction to Mantis a little bit as a character of an empathic sort of thing, and then that whole sort of joke of her reading Quill's feelings for Gamora.
Yeah.
And Drax laughing his ass off.
And then like he's feeling it so strongly that when Mantis touches him, she starts laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I like Mantis. I mean,
I love
she's
Mantis.
Mantis is. I mean, she is so very innocent in this, and you know, a lot of things that you. I mean, and obviously, you know, you see this sort of budding relationship between Mantis and Drax throughout this. I suppose this is kind of Drax's story arc for this swing, is the relationship with Mantis.
Yeah, like kind of a budding father, like surrogate father, surrogate daughter relationship.
Not according to AO3, but okay.
No, that's
nothing.
Definite,
yeah, nothing is innocent. Nothing is innocent in regards to AO3.
No, the way I read that whole relationship is Drax almost being like, you know how like the guy is like a kid who like pretends that he really hates the girl he's actually interested in.
She's got cooties.
Yeah, that's how I read that whole relationship to begin with, and
it was like they were both in primary school.
It was a little bit, wasn't it? It was cute, but you kind of don't want to follow it to its logical conclusion because they both seem a bit too innocent for that. Yeah, and it gets creepy.
So basically, I'm the only one who read that relationship in a way that fits the grander theme of the movie as a whole.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. Of course, you know, this is also me ex-fund a super innocent puppy god.
I mean, to go back to our other analogy, that relationship pairing almost comes off as creepy as if Shaggy had actually hit it off with Velma.
I always thought Shaggy and Velma would have been cute together, though. Because he'd have got her to loosen up and she'd have got him to take life a bit more seriously.
I have only
I always identified with
I only have one word to say to that
Velma,
entire thing. I only have one word to say to react to what you've just said there, Jen. That's zoinks.
Yoinks.
So
no. Jinkies.
Jinkies. So, and we do have a brief cutaway where we learn that Yondu has actually been exiled from the other, Ravager factions.
Yeah.
Because it got out that he was, doing pickup service for Ego.
That often, that sort of got you, thinking that there is some that's the first time you get this idea that there's some sort of code of honor between amongst the Ravagers, and that Yondu broke that.
Yeah, there's a kind of honor among thieves theme going on there, isn't there?
Yeah.
And that Yondu is exiled because he crossed the line. No, we do not deal in child slavery. You crossed the fucking line there.
Yeah.
Was the reason he's been exiled by Rocky there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, arguably, what got him exiled wasn't the fact that he was running kids to Ego. Arguably, what got him exiled was the fact that he saved Quill. Because it seems like him keeping Quill is how that got out.
Yeah, because everyone's going to ask, what the hell did the little... what did
well, this is because this is the thing, obviously, that gets brought out with the discontent amongst his crew, isn't it? Is why did you keep sparing Quill, kind of thing, and but I got the feeling more from say Stallone's character or whatever, that it was more the fact that he was participating in sort of trafficking children was the issue.
Yeah, and I think it's more the fact that him keeping Quill made the others aware of what he was doing rather than them turning on him because he kept Quill. So Will was kind of the symptom, not the cause, if you like. Or at least that's my reading of it.
It was him showing a smidgen of humanity after what he'd done. And he couldn't take Quill. He couldn't take Quill back because Quill didn't have anywhere to go back to.
Yeah.
But obviously, this is the thing that obviously with Yondu that kind of, kind of becomes the sort of big thing, with Yondu's character in this, that he would, that in reality, he, as much as he tried to sort of like make out that he was, that he genuinely loved Quill like the son that he never had. And this is sort of thing that kind of comes out in this movie.
Yeah.
As much as he tried to sort of deny that's what it was, that he took a liking to Quill and sort of kind of adopted him as his own, really.
Yeah.
In a way that you get the sense that Stallone took a liking to Yondu.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a, again, I'm going to call them the pirates because, quite frankly, that's what they are. And it's quote unquote the pirates' code, isn't it? There's certain things you just don't do, and certain things that are more important. And these Ravager captains, finding an heir and raising them into it, and all of that. It's. I'd love to see a movie about these characters.
Oh, The Revengers would be an awesome movie on a lot of sides.
I think it was, and obviously we'll get to it. It was something obviously it's definitely been teased that there'll be a further part of it.
It'll probably end up being an animated series.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you don't get a guy with a big name as Sylvester Stallone without further plans, really.
Well, also, fun fact: the Guardians that are featured in the Guardians of the Galaxy series are actually the second iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy. All the different Ravager captains that get together at the end of the movie are actually Easter eggs for the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
They're the OG Guardians.
Yeah.
Okay, right. That makes sense. That's not something I knew about, but yeah.
Yeah. Like as I said before, and we'll keep saying, once you get into space, when it comes to Marvel, it's all pretty much deep lore stuff.
So they obviously, you have the Sovereigns kind of turn up at this point in the movie as well, and talk to Yondu about like, hey, getting your hands on the Guardians because they stole from him.
Yeah.
And which Yondu obviously takes the contract.
Are we going to mention the potentially problematic costuming of those Sovereigns? Because it looked to me like the ones pulling the ones unrolling the rug were dressed in a rather in what would be called an Afro-inspired fashion if it were Earth.
I noticed a little bit of that, and there's some of their stuff as well that looks almost Egyptian in the way it's designed. But that might be just because it's all frigging gold.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can read that much into that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
I'm not comfortable reading that much into it.
That's why I said, do we want to talk about it as potentially problematic or not?
I think insofar as it makes them more othered to the majority white audience who are going to watch this movie, there's an issue there. It's feeding into that tradition of othering by using foreign fashions and foreign designs. Beyond that, it is what it is. The thing is with Marvel movies, I've sort of come to realize and to learn they are problematic. Regardless, there's always going to be problems with them because they are fundamentally based on a media that is fundamentally flawed.
Yeah.
And on a media that goes back to a time when those flaws were commonplace. So even if you try and update it, you're not going to catch every little thing. So I hate to say it, but you almost have to read the MCU as if it was written when the comic books were written.
Yeah.
Rather than when the films were released. Because they draw so much from the comic books, it's more accurate to contextualize them within the history of the comic books they're based on than it is into the context the movies were released. But aside from one or two, like Black Panther, you can contextualize in the 60s and in the modern day because there's the parallels going on.
Yeah.
But when you're not in a situation where the social parallels are there, you kind of have to accept that these movies are essentially based on 50, 60-year-old plots at this point. Yeah. There's going to be issues. Do I like that they kept the visual? No. Do I appreciate that they are staying somewhat loyal to the comic books and are feeding off of the tropes of those comic books? I believe that's more likely what's going on than real malice on the issues of sort of race and everything else in that.
I'm kind of inclined to be very charitable with it, to be honest.
Basically, look, listen, they're not a Durzo. They're not doing it deliberately.
Yeah.
They're doing it because they have... Yeah. Listen, if I went into a film studio now and I said I wanted to make a film based on a 200-year-old or an 80-year-old book, that film's going to have issues.
Yeah.
That film's going to have an undercurrent of homophobia, race issues, gender issues, because that's the plot it's based on.
Yeah.
You've got films in the 2010s that are based on stories that were being written in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though they are largely, they are an adaptation, when adaptations are in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when it's been adapted by a culture that is aiming at a target audience that really doesn't engage with those issues in the first place, it has no good reason to update those problematic elements.
Yeah.
Because those problematic elements are what are going to be familiar and draw the audience in. And first and foremost, movie making is a business. It's a profit-driven enterprise. So, you know, I get it. It's an issue, but it's an issue with comic books and not necessarily an issue with the MCU.
I don't. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing in this movie that I would say that was intentionally problematic.
Yeah,
and that's a big. Yeah, which is the big thing. You know, intent is kind of key in these things.
I don't think intent's as key as we think it is. I think for me, there's a level of, and I say this with all charitable intention, but you're going to see why intent doesn't really matter when I say it. There's a level of ignorance and arrogance by the creators that makes them think they don't have to engage with these issues to update them.
Yeah.
And that arrogance exists because they already have an audience who agrees with them.
Also,
so, you know.
We have to say thank you to Ox.
Yeah, thank you, Ox. The chat did a thing.
What did the chat do?
Thing.
Oh, I love it. Fantastic.
Thank you, Ox.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ox.
Thank you, Ox.
That was inevitable.
That was Iron Man.
Mm.
Oh.
I like you anymore. I'm going.
Right, where are we? Where are we with the plot with this? Because I was saying, like, obviously, that Yondu, I think, says that they took the job to go, from the Sovereigns to go after the Guardians.
Yeah.
So
we cut back to, Quill, the Quill group arriving on Ego.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's we get we get little visual hints that everything that that is Ego's is kind of like almost like or manifested.
Mm.
Like everything that is Ego's is Ego.
Mm.
Like when the ship comes into dock, it like grows out a bridge.
Yeah.
Look, I don't need to go into the potential symbolism of that image. Thank you.
I told you they landed someplace hard.
Yeah.
So to paraphrase from Junk Shop, unlike the source material, this stream is not for children.
When is this stream ever for children when you've got Jen and me on it, Ring? Ever.
Yeah.
So, and Ego explains a sanitized version of his backstory where he experiences consciousness and then is alone. And then goes out and then and then creates the world that they're on. And then goes out to find life.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then I met your mother and we had, and then he confirms that yes, he does have a reproductive system.
Yeah. Thanks, Drax.
No comment.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the genitals of super powerful borderline deities are not something that I think about or want to think about a lot. There is a Zeus in my pantheon. I hear enough and more than enough, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does bring a new meaning to the term planet smasher.
I'm trying to remember what point it is on this, because I mean, at this point, Quill's sort of there's a part of Quill that's still very reluctant at this point with Ego though as well.
Yeah.
Of the whole, which something I can personally relate to.
So
why did you leave? It's something I can say very personally relate to with my own father. So,
Yeah.
And of course, we do have or we did have a bit of foreshadowing for the end of the movie at the, a little bit earlier, where Gamora, when Gamora encourages to go with Ego and says, if he turns out to be evil, we can just kill him.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that it's Gamora that says that after her issues with Thanos in the first one.
Yeah.
And it's Gamora who basically boils it down.
Once again, thank you, Ox.
But yeah, no, it's because Gamora kind of is able to condense that down into what's the worst that could happen, because she's been there, she's lived the worst that could happen. She knows what it is to have a parent that you really don't want.
Yeah.
So I think there's an element of Quill looking at Gamora and saying, worst case scenario is I end up like her.
Yeah.
And she's basically telling him it's worth the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of an emotional thing going on there.
And then
and again, again, this is something that, again, in a way, it was. I can also relate to sort of Quill's journey here, that you've got to kind of find out for yourself.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this stream was going to get so personal, actually. But with these things, you kind of do have to find these things out for yourself. If you've got like a parent or something that you didn't really know.
Yeah. And then then we cut back to the planet they crash landed on with Rocket having some Home Alone fun with the Ravagers.
No, I gotta say, one of the best visuals in this whole film is the mines with a boom, hey, boom, hey, boom.
Yeah.
That's one of the best visuals in this film.
Yeah. And it did definitely Home Alone vibes.
Yeah.
Definitely what that's an homage to. Like I half expected paint cans.
Yeah.
So Rocket's just always good fun. Rocket's good value. And this is what I like. They took the comic relief character, but they actually gave him a character.
Yeah.
He's not just a cheap laugh. He's actually has grown as a character and developed. But then he never stops being the comic relief character either.
Yeah.
Can I just correct Ox on there? No, it's Rocket the Raccoon guy. Rocket's Trash Panda guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, after he uses up all of his, traps that he has set and then beats the shit out of two Ravagers with his bare paws, everyone comes out of the bushes and Yondu's like, yeah, we got you.
Oh, shit. Yeah. It's that moment of, I think I fought my way out. Oh, shit, I'm surrounded.
Yeah.
Or more, I think I fought my way out. Oh, shit, there's a Yaka arrow right in front of my face.
Yeah. Seriously?
No,
that's just boy races.
But of course, Nebula kind of ruins that for everyone because Yondu was going to let them go again in exchange for the batteries.
Mm.
And then there's a there's a heated discussion over whether or not Yondu is going soft.
And again, he slightly betrays his weakness for Quill in this moment as well. Ever so slightly,
Yeah. It's an interesting moment. emotional again.
Mm.
Because you start to see in the first film, we kind of, the characters have got their own little things going on, but we don't really get that deep into it. In this one, we begin to see their backstories and origins in much more depth.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this one, the backstory we get on Quill and all of them in this one, to me, is more important than the one in the first one.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because it's his actual lived experience. Now, there will always be the impact of losing his mother at such a young age, but these people who he actually grew up with and grew up around and his actual lived experiences, if losing his mother is the foundation, these people are the walls of the house.
Yeah.
They're what you actually, there you can see their impact on him as a character. And to me, I think they don't matter more, but they are what most people are going to point to and say, that's what made him who he is.
Yeah.
And it's these moments that really show that, I think.
Yeah. And of course, Nebula cons Groot into freeing her.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Yondu has just about talked the other Ravagers down, but his fin is shot off.
Yeah.
And then, we cut to more, back and forth on Ego's planet with Drax discussing, with having discussions with Mantis, and Mantis wanting to reveal the dark truth about Ego to Drax, but Gamora walks in at the wrong time for at the wrong time, but at the right time for
at the cinematically appropriate time.
Yeah, at the cinematically appropriate time.
Right time for narrative purposes.
Yeah. Deus Ex Interruptus.
Yeah. Or Interruptus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Interruptus Ex Maxima. Well, that really sounds like a bad session, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No, that's Coitus Interruptus.
Yeah. And of course, this is where, depending on your reading, if you are like me in the minority and read it in conjunction with the grander themes of the movie, we see the burgeoning surrogate father-daughter relationship between Drax and Mantis. In the what seems to be the majority opinion, we see the slightly creepy-ish, Drax
vaguely paternalistic. Yeah. It does. Don't get me wrong. The shipping side of it does get a bit creepy with the two of them. But I think the whole point is Drax is always one of those characters who's a little bit. He's an oddity.
Yeah.
And so is she. And so I think watching it, we don't know enough about these two characters and who they really are to say whether their dynamic is weird or not.
Yeah.
For them. However, it's weird to us watching it. I will absolutely grant that. It's weird as all hell. Especially because it seems to go so quickly from meet cute to, I'm going to say it, daddy kink. It seems to get there in about 3.5
Now I'm
seconds
thinking
flat.
of Daddy Cool, the song.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean by that. It's a bit it's disquieting
Yeah.
because you don't get the impression that a lot of work has been done on this relationship off screen.
Yeah.
And it's that lack of sense that any work's been done off screen that makes it disquieting.
Well, yeah, like, so say quit, like, so there are like 4 storylines,
Mm-hmm.
in this movie.
Yeah.
We've got, and we have a chaotix.
Chaotic.
Chaotix.
Well,
Chaotix to go.
Impossible.
Yeah. So, we have the A story of Quill and his daddy issues.
Mm.
We have the B story of Gamora, Nebula, and their daddy issues.
Yeah.
We have the C story of Rocket and his general misanthropy, and Yondu and his I was a daddy issues.
Yeah.
And we
And
It's
then
literally just
and we got Drax with Drax and Mantis with I want to shag my daddy issues.
Yeah.
But
I think
cut
the
to
thing is
fucking
this
chase,
film.
you know.
This film could just be retitled "Daddy Issues: The Movie."
yeah.
Daddy Issues in Space, the sequel no one asked for.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's
I
the same.
would-
That's the same as The Empire Strikes Back, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
That's not my fandom.
Well, I mean, like, both are arguably better than the original,
yeah,
Mm.
and both go like down a darker path than the original.
Mm.
True.
This is true.
So basically, what we're saying is, Guardians is Empire now. So first we had Guardians is the Bible. Then we had Guardians is Scooby Doo.
No, we had Guardians is Oedipus in there for a bit as well.
You do realize if Amanda is lurking in the chat anywhere privately, she is going to fucking kill us. So
and now we have Guardians 2 is Empire.
Okay, but do you honestly believe if Amanda was lurking in the chat, she wouldn't have said something by now?
Oh yeah, she would have killed us
Yeah.
already.
Also,
that
I
comment,
think it was
though.
mentioned, but Guardians is every space-themed D&D group ever.
Yeah.
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 Pretty much.
And as I said, Guardians 2 is basically where Nebula and Yondu go from being NPCs to being PCs.
Yeah, although I feel like Yondu was more of a DMPC.
Also, can I point out that does that mean then that Groot was killed in the third session and had to be re-rolled?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, actually, remind me, Noodle. I have a D&D story for you later about a character who lasted less than a session.
I will. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Anyways, so, and Gamora, Gamora gives her misgivings about the about the situation, given the fact that they are the only living beings on the planet. And Mantis lets slip that Ego is the planet and basically views them as fleas and views her as a useful flea. And I kind of feel really sorry for Mantis. Because, she's from a race of natural empaths who was taken from her, planet and essentially
by a narcissist.
Yeah, by a narcissist and used as a useful tool / pet.
Yeah.
See, I think the I think the biggest thing about being taken by a narcissist there is she wasn't just taken by a narcissist. She was taken by a narcissist with a literal ego the size of a planet.
Yes.
Literally the narcissist. You know?
Yeah.
And
which is not an abusive dynamic at all.
Oh, of course. No, of course it's not.
Well, but she said because she provides one function for him, to help him sleep every so often.
Wow, that got darker than my brain went really dark places with that.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. So we're just gonna let that sit a bit.
Also, it's a good thing that Ego didn't take Quill's mum back to his planet, rather than leave Quill there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is all pretty dark, actually. Ego's whole plan is incredibly dark.
Yeah.
He's an incredibly dark character.
That cave of bones was...
Yeah.
And of course, the fact that, the revelation about how dark Ego is, hits each section of the Quill Drax Gamora group at the same time, narratively speaking.
Yep.
It is a great reveal, is a wonderfully executed multi-part reveal.
You can, and you can also say as well with the whole Rocket and Yondu thing as well, because it doesn't necessarily hit the same one, but Yondu knows Ego's a piece of shit. He knows that, or part of the reason why he didn't give Quill over to him as well. He already knows who Ego is and does not like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to back up a bit because Yondu, Rocket, and Groot are captured by the villainous Taserface.
Taserface. That is such a.
You're right there, Noodle.
There are certain things that I just.
Yeah.
This is my that's a terrible pun face. For once, I'm not making it because Ring did something.
It's not your Taserface then.
Yeah. For once, it's no one in this room.
Yeah.
But then the fact
explicitly.
but the fact then that it's the whole he gets his taser and Rocket just can't stop laughing at how stupid that name is.
Yeah.
It's like it's basically the closest thing an MCU movie has come to having a meta joke about comic books.
Yeah.
I resemble that raccoon in that situation.
Yeah. Because
I think the thing is Rocket is the asshole of the group.
But at the same time, it's also that there is the fight there between the Ravagers, between those who are still loyal to Yondu and those that mutinied.
Or rather, those who had mutinied and those who are currently floating in space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. They because they threw some of them out in space, including Chibs from Sons of Anarchy. Just had to get that one in there. But and obviously you get to a certain point where there's at least one character who kind of went along with the mutiny just to save his own ass, but didn't really agree with it.
Yeah. Well, and Kraglin is something of a tertiary character who has his own daddy issues journey in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because essentially, Yondu is Kraglin's surrogate chosen father figure.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
I'm gonna have to drop, guys.
Okay.
Oh, no
Actually,
worries.
I'm going to take the
The late-
opportunity, and me too, because
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Between late night and drugs, I'm a little out of it, and Rob's trying to sleep now, and I need to let him because he's not doing too well tonight. So
Yeah, no, my brain's just switched off after being kept up all night by estate noise and football crowds. So I apologise, but you know what council estates are like, and
Yeah,
I don't know what big football match there was yesterday, but like I said, 3 o'clock in the
Champions
morning
League
and
final.
car horns.
Yeah.
That'll be it.
I kept you up till like
I was
1 a.m.
gonna
and even
say,
then it wasn't my fault.
Trouble is,
Exactly.
I was going to say you won't have to worry about football for a couple of months, and I just realised shit. Euros are late. The European Championships are late in months.
I need to buy a new set of head
earplugs,
Noise cancelling headphones.
Yeah.
Any quick shilling you want to do?
Not tomorrow.
Go back and watch
Following
Jeff's
Monday.
stream with your shield.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not tomorrow. Following Monday, I'm going to pick up game night. Because tomorrow's bank holiday, so I'm taking a day off. Damn it. But yeah, I will catch you all probably next week on Media Musings. If not sooner. Take care. Be good. And remember, use your noodle.
Yep.
See you, Noodle.
Yeah.
Take care, Noodle.
Bye, everyone.
bye.
Don't be a dick and try not to choke on the selfie stick. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know,
And then there were 3.
yeah. So, you know, Yondu and Rocket have some bonding in the cell.
Yeah.
And luckily for Groot, Taserface decides that, you know, he's too adorable to kill. Unluckily for him, that means they haze him into becoming their mascot.
Unfortunate for who?
Well,
in retrospect, you know. I mean, obviously, this leads to one of the funniest like gag, you know, like, funny bits in the movie. The Yondu and Rocket tried to get Baby Groot to go and get the item.
You know, with several missteps, you know, including one that shall not be mentioned. We will never speak of this.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That took a second.
Yeah. And of course, this is where we learn that Kraglin, well, it's less that Kraglin went. I think Kraglin first went on with the mutiny because he thought Yondu actually did step out of line. But then realized he was in over his head and continued going with the flow. But then, of course, he decide, you know, he gets the fin for Yondu.
Yeah.
And we have possibly one of the best sequences in the movie where they take the...
It was fucking impressive.
Yeah. And
like, hey, let's 2 or 3 of us just take a fucking ship.
Yeah. And where you get to really see how scary the Yaka arrow is.
Yeah, I think that's where you see where both Groot and the arrow are fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
I made the joke last week that the Yucca arrow is the most terrifying weapon in the world unless your name is Team Skeptic and you can't whistle.
Yeah. But
I can't whistle very well either, so Sam's.
And of course, in keeping with the theme of of the franchise, we have it set to an 80s/70s song, presumably from Quill's collection, because before the scene starts, Rocket asks Yondu if they have any backups of Quill's music.
The fact that the group grew to actually tolerate Quill's music amuses me.
Yeah.
And especially the idea that Rocket finds it comforting.
Yeah. Well, and,
something found family trope.
Yeah. And of course, he was listening to it as he was doing his whole Home Alone thing back at the wrecked ship.
Yeah.
And of course, we get one last Taserface is a terrible name joke as he calls the Sovereign when the ship, well, most of the ship gets exploded.
Yeah. She's like, the ship exploded, except this tiny bit here, but we don't talk about that.
Well, it was set up.
Yep.
Because Yondu tells Kraglin to.
It was purposeful, but
yeah. To secure that quadrant. So it appears that at least that Ravager ship had something of a modular design.
Yeah. Or at least semi-modular.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those. You can separate this bit at least, so either it had an escape hatch or it's completely modular.
Yeah. And of course they warp to go see, to go to Ego, which was a bad idea because it's over 700 jumps away.
Well,
yeah. And of course, here's where we have the best Stan Lee cameo in the MCU.
Yes.
The one that basically confirms a long-standing fan theory.
Yep. I was gonna say that my favorite is either that or the one where it's like, got a package for Mr. Stank.
Yeah.
But those are the two best that I remember off the top of my head.
Well, and actually that one is referenced in this one.
Yep.
Because as he's surrounded by the Watchers, he says, and then there was this one time when I was a FedEx delivery man.
Yes. Like Stan Lee, it was just. See, when Stan Lee died, I think the biggest thing everyone was thinking for like the week after was, oh, no cameos.
Yeah. Though I do like the suggestion someone made where they keep doing cameos, but instead of Stan Lee, it's all Deadpool cameos.
Yes. And I think I'm certain Ryan Reynolds will be down for that.
Yeah.
Especially if they had like one where his name tag was Stan Lee.
Like the first one is one where his name tag is Stan Lee. But, and of course, Star-Lord, Quill is brought to the dark side by Ego using Brandy as a metaphor for how they are. And in a way, it works for Ego because, the chorus is, what a good, Brandy, you're a fine world, what a good life, what a good wife you will be, but my love, is the sea. While he did while you do get the sense that he did have some feelings for Meredith, she was a means to an end. She,
it was one of those. I liked this one. Still gonna fucking murder her, but I liked this one.
Yeah. And and of course there's a slight slip up when he reveals that it was him that had given her the brain cancer.
Yep. That's one of the tropes of like, this villain is far too powerful to be defeated in theory. Yeah. In practice, this villain's a dumbass.
Yeah.
Because, oh, hey, I murdered your mum is going to go down well after he spent the last how many days talking about his mum.
Yeah, well, arguably, not only is Ego a the ultimate narcissist, but he is so alien to any other kind of biological life that he cannot have empathy for them.
See, I was about to say, something tells me that were this still an official diagnosis, he would be diagnosed a psychopath. And for people watching, a diagnosis of psychopathy is when that was still a term that was used in psychological fields, basically just meant not experiencing empathy. And so, and what that would mean is literally just that you can't directly relate to someone's emotions. That's not a function your body has.
Yeah.
And because that's a really common thing where if someone gets referred to as a psychopath, I'm like, some of the nicest people I've met are literally diagnosed psychopaths.
Yeah. And he does, he didn't, phrase it, standoffishly, yeah. It was an offhanded thing that he didn't think about. Yeah. What he was trying to impress the importance of his mission onto Quill, and he was mentioning it as a regret. Because the line is, it killed me to put that tumor in her head.
Yeah. Just like, this is supposed to be relatable, right?
Yeah.
And then that didn't work.
No. And, so they, and, this is when, the ship shows up and Yondu makes the offhand comment of, we're going to go fight a planet. And the look on Rocket's face just sells that joke.
The complete what the fuck.
Yeah. And
humans are weird.
Yeah. And so we have a climactic, battle in. Oh, welcome back, Scummer.
Yeah, I did say be right back in the chat. So
yeah. So anything you want to speak on as to what we've gone over so far?
You kind of covered the Stan Lee cameo, which is kind of yes, why it is the best, because it kind of gets revealed, and I said it was a fan theory for a long time that each one of these Stan Lee cameos was the same character. It wasn't quite, and we didn't quite know what, and then it turns out he's an agent of the Watchers.
I was going to say, the idea was that the original theory would have been that he was the Watcher for the Milky Way.
Yeah. That he was Uatu.
Yes, I always forget the name.
Yeah. And of course we have, Ego fucking up by revealing that he was the one who killed Meredith.
In that moment, because where Quill was almost there, on Ego's decision, and then that thing was like, what, And hold on, I've got the quote somewhere here, to be honest, but I can't find it. I have a load of quotes from this movie, but I couldn't find it.
They drill down to the core. We have the great moment of first we have the moment that I would definitely point towards in support of my reading of Drax and Mantis as a father-daughter relationship as opposed to a romantic relationship, where Drax, where they need to put, they're trying to put Ego to sleep, and Mantis is like, I only do it when he when he wants it. I don't think I'm powerful enough to, force him to be asleep.
Yeah.
And Drax says, you don't need to believe in yourself because I believe in you. Which kind of cemented the surrogate father, surrogate daughter.
I feel like that it could go either way, but it does lean towards either Drax being the mum friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and given the fact that the movie is about dealing with daddy issues, like it's the reading that that harmonizes most closely with the themes of the film itself.
Yeah. Now I have another take that is a bit of a double kind of a double parallel, I guess, because you've got the whole daddy issues thing.
Yeah.
But also, how much do the themes of Guardians 2 just scream queer self-discovery story?
Okay.
No, go on.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were just thinking about that a second.
Yeah. Elaborate on that one. I think you need to.
Okay, so it kind of follows on from. I think Guardians in general is that kind of idea, where usually you'll get like a bunch of people who don't really fit in, who form a friend group, and they don't really know they're going to end up being close friends, but they happen to. And then that develops into a bit of a almost like found family, but it doesn't really become found family properly until like really towards the end.
Yeah.
And you go through the thing of, oh, my parent might accept me.
Yeah.
And then either they don't or they do, but with an ulterior motive. A lot of the themes around having to pass through a phase of doing things that are generally considered unsavory, like sex work.
Yeah.
Are in there. There is very much Yondu very much strikes me as the dad at Pride who wears a Free Hugs shirt.
Yeah.
Well,
and then of course, there's his line to Rocket where I know who you are because you're me.
Yeah,
Yeah. And especially if like Yondu is an elder queer, that would follow quite nicely along those tracks. And so while I think it's more of a that can be read into it, I feel like there's a relatively strong case to be made for it.
Yeah. And like really like without the Drax Mantis being seen as a surrogate, father-daughter relationship, Drax doesn't really have anything thematically to tie into the movie. While everyone has some sort of father issues working through, to work through. It seems like for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, aside from Drax, all of the Guardians are a family without a dad, without a father figure. And Drax is a father figure without a family.
Yep. And that is very much, I think, something they started to explore, but the general impression I get is that ideally they would have done 3 Guardians films before Infinity War.
Yeah.
I felt like the story didn't naturally progress the way it should have done.
There was a Guardians 3.
Yeah, that was
in the works.
Yeah.
But then 4chan trolls dug up some old tweets that James Gunn had tweeted that he had already atoned and apologized for, and caused up a shitstorm that made Disney fire him, and he went on to do Suicide Squad.
Yeah, and there was a little thing as well where I can't remember the timeline on this, but Dave Bautista briefly dropped out of doing any more Guardians films, and then he got kind of convinced to come back as well.
Well, yeah, that's after they fired James Gunn, because like basically the entire cast walked because of how the studio treated James Gunn.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see. I knew Dave Bautista had walked out on it. I couldn't quite remember the.
Fair. So yeah, that's one of those you can feel the continuity error there, but it wasn't the fault of like the films that were the Guardians.
Yeah, it was the fault of studio bullshit politics being brought on by real world bullshit politics.
Yep.
So let's get back obviously to where we are at the film, because we're kind of at the final battle here.
Yeah.
And I suppose if there is the slight father-son thing coming in there, you could probably argue that with Groot and Rocket to a degree as well. And the fact that he's got the whole I love the whole thing with the nuclear bomb
detonator.
And
I really love.
Has anybody got any tape?
Yeah.
And obviously Groot goes running off, and it's obviously where Groot goes running off by himself. But
but Sam, you were saying something.
I really love the dynamic idea of like the fact that Rocket is now effectively learning to look after Groot.
Yeah.
But like obviously in the same way Yondu had to learn to look after Quill. But the fact that I feel like Rocket parallels some of the same mistakes with Groot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sending the small human small creature into dangerous situations. Like it was definitely called for and was what saved their necks.
Yeah.
Well, it was the only thing. It's like no one else was small enough to get to.
Well, I feel like the way Rocket was so reluctant to do it kind of shows that he had learned from Yondu a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after the hilarious scene with the detonator.
Yeah. And then that whole thing of, in the unlikely event that Groot does not kill us all,
Yeah.
that little line.
Yeah.
Where, so Drax gets Mantis out of danger, sacrificing the integrity of his sensitive nipples to do so. And
there was also a little bit just before this as well, which there's a bit I loved with when Quill just fires back at Ego just with the Fleetwood Mac song.
I'm getting to there.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, they have their they're having their fight where it looks like they're winning for a bit, and Ego's doing his his abusive father monologue. And it begins to look like everything's like Ego's gonna win.
Yeah.
And Yondu says, "I don't fly the arrow with my head. I fly it with my heart." And Quill flashes back to moments of him with the other Guardians. And then there's the flash to him as a kid with Yondu, where Yondu is teaching him how to aim a gun. And then we have the best use of the chain I've ever seen in a movie.
It was, frankly, a masterpiece, that little bit there.
Yeah.
Like, I think the big battle is one of very few where I will say Marvel did that fight correctly.
Yeah.
And then one thing I'm always amazed about is they used the chain and they did not use the big crescendo at the end.
Yeah.
In this movie. And for most British people, the end of the chain is basically known as the theme for Formula One racing on BBC.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
see, I was listening to the chain at one point, and it kind of got to that bridge bit as one of my friends walked in the room, and they were really confused as to how I was watching Formula One.
But it is a bit of of narrative symmetry, because the last time the chain played in the in the movie was when the Guardians were separating, on the planet that they wrecked on. But yeah, I will agree that this is the best climactic fight in a Marvel movie I've seen. I would say with the exception of Doctor Strange, but that's not really a fight.
No.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, I know this is skipping a little bit, but then you had the Pac-Man thing.
Yeah.
Which is just great.
Quill's use of his powers in that fight were impressive.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't even think it's necessarily impressive in and of its own right, even though it was specifically. But also the fact that the writers managed to pull that off.
Yeah. Well, and I will rewind a bit because it is cogent to our discussion of, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as a daddy issues movie. But, earlier, because we skipped over this part and it would be a travesty if we didn't mention it. We do have like the beginnings of the realization that Yondu is Quill's father, real father figure, where, the ship or the shuttle they're in, gets wrecked, and Quill's, descending in his jetpack, and Yondu has the Yaka arrow lowering him down safely. Quill looks up at Yondu and says,
You look like Mary Poppins.
Yeah, you look like Mary Poppins. And Yondu being, a Kree who's never really experienced Earth culture except as filtered through by Quill, replies with, "Is he cool?" And Quill, this is kind of it takes a second, and this is where we get the kind of the first real father-son moment between Yondu and Quill, where Quill replies with, "Yeah, he's cool," and Yondu goes, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all."
That felt like one of those moments of like, I don't want to tell him, but also that is kind of badass.
Yeah. But what makes most Marvel climaxes at least good, because talking about a Marvel movie is a lot like talking about a Pixar movie, where where even the bad ones are still good.
Fair.
So, and what the better ones do is in the climax of the movie, they tie the emotional conflict, the emotional and thematic conflict with the physical conflict. And of course, with this, it syncs together perfectly.
Yeah.
So,
I think that this film was just really well written, as well as the film quality being good. The writer's attention to detail here was impressive.
Yeah. And
as was the people who did all of the coordinating of shit. Like they did well.
Any final things to say about
Obviously,
climactic battle before we move to the real end of the movie and how hard it hits?
Not massively, because obviously, the bit obviously what they get to is Yondu sacrificing himself.
Yeah.
I think
there's two things, there's two parts of this thing coming up that got to me. It was Yondu obviously sacrificing himself for Quill, and then the whole thing of Rocket when he stuns Gamora.
Yeah.
I feel like
it says that whole line of, "I lost one friend today, I can't afford to lose another."
Yeah.
At that moment where Mantis had her badass moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's worth mentioning before we move forwards.
Yeah.
Is that as the awkward character, I think having a badass moment is kind of like a rite of passage sort of thing at this point.
Yeah. And what a badass moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, here, let me just put a planet to sleep.
Unfortunately, she failed her deck save and got knocked out by flying debris.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dear.
And, of course, we have the heart-wrenching scene of Yondu sacrificing himself by giving the only spacesuit to Quill.
And that quite immortal line. He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
Yeah.
That's fucking one of those perfect fucking lines.
Especially for a last line.
I feel like it felt a bit cheesy in the moment, but then you look back at it and go, "Fuck yeah!"
Yeah,
and just the way it's delivered as well, it sort of just fits Yondu perfectly,
Yeah, and taken in the moment, it looks, it reads on the very bare surface level as a cheesy line. but taken with the rest of the movie as a whole, it's the perfect line for that.
Yeah,
for
It is.
for that instant. And then we have Yondu's funeral.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that
Yondu's
obviously it
funeral was.
Mm.
I
Go
on, sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean the whole sort of thing of that with because the word was put out to the other Ravagers about what Yondu did. And bear in mind, Yondu had been exiled from them, and the fact that they just came there and, like, because they heard what he did, they came there and gave him that send off. Like, it's just to say, in death, we kind of accept him back in as one of us. And
yeah, and also, the speech Quill gives about how Yondu really was his dad.
Yeah. I think that the thing.
Well, his David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
I think that the thing with that moment is that it felt like a fulfillment of the redemption arc.
Yeah.
Because it was like he's been redeemed in Quill's eyes, and then his community looked and went, no, this guy did the right thing in the end.
Yeah. And unlike the greater pattern of the Guardians franchise, this is a somber, dramatic moment that doesn't get undercut with any jokes.
No.
Yeah. And I think the fact that the fact it doesn't get undercut with any jokes, and it's like the one scene that doesn't, I think is what emphasizes it. And also what kind of sells it as a plausible ending to the first two Guardians films.
And there's another thing with this as well, that when they're watching all the fireworks and so on, that's kind of just sort of subtly admitted, but not, it doesn't bash you over the head, but effectively Gamora kind of confesses to Quill that she does love him.
Yeah.
But in that whole thing of it's just an unspoken thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she just kind of, it's like she kind of admits that as well to Quill, but in just that, but not
the dynamic is there, and there's that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course the fact that one of the some of the fireworks form a Yaka arrow.
Oh fuck yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know about you two, but yeah, like that scene hit me in places I didn't know I had in theaters. And then I watched it again this morning and I was like, oh fuck, this hits me hard.
And see, the thing is, I went and I'm trying to remember when. I think I went and watched it in cinema. It might have even been with my best friend while we were dating.
Yeah,
but it was with my best mate. We went and watched it, and me and my best mate watched it in cinema. I think we were dating at the time, and we got to that scene, and my best mate just burst out crying in the cinema.
Yeah,
and so I did the whole "I'm very emotional too, but come here, I will give you cuddles."
Yeah.
And so that's my first interaction with that scene and doesn't really go away.
Yeah. But, that scene like speaks to anyone who has experienced any kind of loss of a loved one.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I imagine is most people.
It's also, to be honest,
also,
that funeral is like the send off you'd want for any loved one as well.
Yeah.
In a way.
I think that it's very much a thing as well of like, I feel like I don't know if I can call it a trope, But the thing that comes up in films sometimes that's like this character gets accepted after death, like the post-mortem redemption. I think that is a very human thing.
Yeah. And so, and also, the closing scene, not counting the, in credits.
The numerous mid and
numerous in credit scenes.
Yeah.
Really demonstrates why so far, Guardians of the Galaxy is a great sub-franchise.
Yes.
Because, yes, you have the, yes, you have the action. Yes, you have the great comedy. Especially slipping in jokes that, are surprising that they got away with that.
Oh yeah, the fact that was a kids movie was something else.
Actually, I just have to bring one thing up towards the end of this movie as well, and this is, I suppose, the end of the Drax's story arc with Mantis, where he sort of says, "You are beautiful." He has to qualify it with that on the inside, but that's kind of where I was led to the whole thing of, that it's a romantic thing there. That's
I mean, kind of, you could also say that it's, that could also arguably be a paternal thing.
It could arguably be. That's just how I read it.
Yeah.
That's just how I personally read that.
It read really ambiguous to me, so that I wasn't really sure what to do with that. Yeah. It's like, and that it felt like a really solid ending that could stand by its own, but left open the possibility for the characters to still exist.
Yeah. But okay, so my point is, all those previous things mentioned are what make Guardians of the Galaxy a good franchise. What elevates it into being a great franchise is demonstrated in this funeral scene, because Guardians of the Galaxy is all those other things. It's got action, it's got comedy, it's got dynamic characters. But what makes it great is that Guardians of the Galaxy, both Volume 1 and Volume 2, are sincere and heartfelt.
Yeah.
And that is what shines through in the final scene of the movie where we have Yondu's funeral.
Yeah, very much so, I think.
It was actually to me, it was a very beautiful ending to that film.
Yeah.
To be honest. I wasn't. I watched it in the cinema. I was expecting a far more, and I know they did it with the post-credits scenes and whatever, but I was expecting a far more sort of light-hearted ending to the main film, than what we got there. And it was quite moving at the end with Yondu's funeral.
It's somber and sincere all the way up until the credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you watched the first Guardians movie and assumed that was what you were getting into with the second, you might be in for a bit of a shock.
Yeah. A good shock, but a shock.
Oh yeah, and are we going, now that we've reached the credits? Do we discuss that post-credit scene? Because
which ones?
Which one? Which one? There are.
I'm referring to the one with Adam Warlock specifically.
Okay, yeah.
Well, Adam, we presume Adam Warlock.
Yeah. I'll let you take that, because it is, once as I said before, and I'll probably say again, when it comes to Marvel, once you get away from Earth, pretty much everything is just deep lore stuff, and I'm not that familiar with Marvel cosmology. I'm familiar enough to kind of understand.
Well, you had the first one, don't you? Which is the whole thing with him messing about with the arrow and accidentally shoots Drax with it, which was a good little fun thing.
Yeah, which is a bit of comedic relief.
And then you have obviously
to kind of keep you from just bawling your eyes out.
And you have the obviously the scene with the Ravagers getting back together, like getting together, which we kind of touched on earlier. And Groot, and you got Groot is grown in. You got teenage Groot as opposed to baby Groot, as well.
So, yeah. So the thing with Adam Warlock is throughout the film there are references to him. Him was the original title for Adam Warlock, who was a man made of gold, who was created by a group of researchers who called themselves the Enclave.
Yeah.
And basically, he was supposed to be in the comics. He was supposed to be future human evolution, and obviously in this, it was supposed to be the future evolution of those gold bastards. In what now? See, I'll try not to get too into the comics because that starts to get into potentially mover spoilery territory. But suffice to say, he very much grew beyond the intentions of the researchers and gave them a big fuck off middle finger.
And if I remember right, in Marvel canon, Adam Warlock was actually tied to the Soul Stone, so a lot of people thought he would end up in Infinity War.
He's clearly a teaser for Guardians 3.
Did all of my thing come through then? Because I just realised I cut out.
I missed the last couple of seconds of what you said.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, okay, I thought you had just gone quiet.
Oh, sorry, no. So, also, he was a big plot point where the Infinity Gauntlet was concerned in the comics.
Yeah.
Because his kind of relation to the Infinity Gauntlet was, I think, basically, he effectively had the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
If memory serves.
Yeah, if I remember right.
He ended up encountering Drax when Thanos became a threat. So obviously that timeline isn't going to be followed.
Yeah.
But yeah, Adam very much. Adam effectively became the Supreme by just taking all the Infinity Stones for himself.
Yeah.
And then was later persuaded to give them up.
Okay.
Though if
that
I were to guess, the real teaser for Guardians 3 would have probably been with Stallone and the old guard,
the Ravagers getting back together.
I feel like Warlock kind of has to get his own film.
Yeah.
Maybe they will, but I think probably a character they're going to introduce as part of another film and see how it goes. Then they could do an Adam Warlock film, but and then of course you get the very final post-credit scene, and it's a Stan Lee thing again. Going back to Stan Lee, that the Watchers abandon him because they're no longer interested in his stories.
Yeah.
Which actually relates to the comics in that the Watchers think that I still forget his name, but the Watcher from the Milky Way. Yeah, the Watchers generally think that Uatu takes an unhealthy interest in humans.
Yeah. And well, actually that's not the last post-credit scene. There's one after it, which kind of, closes out the daddy issues arc of the franchise, where Quill, walks into Groot's room.
No, actually, the Watchers thing is the final scene. The one you're thinking of, it comes before that.
But yeah, the one with Teenage Groot.
I'm pretty sure the Teenage Groot.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it goes. It goes. Kraglin, Sovereign, Stanley, Teenage Groot.
I think that
whatever
it doesn't matter.
Whatever the order is,
much, to be honest, but
yeah, whatever the order is, it exists.
Yeah, and of course,
Teenage Groot.
I love
that. I love now Yondu felt.
Yeah. What's boring? Me tripping on your roots all the time. So final thoughts.
I love this.
Excellent fucking movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this movie. I love the Guardians as a franchise in the MCU. Even though I'm not that familiar with the comics, it's just what I know of the Guardians of the Galaxy is literally based on these two movies. I absolutely love them.
I am of the opinion that Guardians 2 did what it set out to do and did it properly.
Yeah.
Which other Marvel films that I love, one of my big criticisms tends to be that they did well, but they tried to do too much, and I don't think this film did.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that it's almost of the thing of you're just touching. All I'll just say, I'm just touching wood for Guardian 3. Marvel, you've got something so good going there. Please don't fuck this thing up.
Yeah.
Let's make it 3 out of 3 for actual good shit.
Yeah, so good.
Let's actually get a trifecta of good movies for once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the best MCU sequel.
Yes.
Yeah, I will go along with that.
Or the best MCU sequel so far.
Oh yeah. We can only ever say so far.
Yeah. And I will say, once again, it's got all the stuff, it's got all the charm and humor and action and well-crafted filmmaking that makes it a good movie. But what pushes it and the rest of the franchise, the rest of the sub-franchise, but specifically Volume 2, because it's more palpable in Volume 2, which makes Volume 2, at least to me, a rise above Volume 1 in terms of quality. Is the Guardians of the Galaxy is a heartfelt and sincere franchise, and that's what really pushes it into greatness.
See, I am of the opinion that the second film felt better than the first, but I would not personally say it was better than the first, because I think it just built off it and was a narrative continuation.
So basically,
I can't choose between. I just love both of these movies. I can't choose between the two of them.
Honestly, mood.
Yeah, basically, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is everything a sequel should be. It, because it builds off what was set forth in the first one in a logical way while keeping things consistent and consistently, and of a consistent quality.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we'll move to Schilling.
Jeff?
I don't have a lot to share at the moment because depending on things, unless there's something I felt the real need to comment on, I'm probably going to take a break for a week or so. from YouTube. But so yeah, I got nothing to really. I can't even plug an Asterix stream anymore because we are done.
Yeah.
So.
And Sam?
So, something Twitter and Instagram. My channel artist is taking commissions at the moment. You can find their links in the descriptions of any of my edited videos. And we release new episodes of Pub Religion, which is a podcast where a pagan, a Christian, and an atheist sit around and have more of like a casual chat about religion-related stuff. We release new episodes of that every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Time, and this coming week's, is going to be about where there are a lot of things that are ascribed as sins or morally wrong that are just not.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it from me.
Okay. And of course, as usual, there is secular D&D on Saturday, assuming life doesn't get in the way, and because that does happen.
Yep.
And secular D&D isn't one where I can just kind of power on without everyone else. And of course, next week is the beginning of Pride Month, which we are kicking off with a gender and sexuality Q&A. And
I should hopefully be about for that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Sam, I'll just say, if you were getting, you might be taking my spot on this because I don't feel this is a conversation I necessarily, as the kind of cis het guy, vanilla guy kind of in the room, I don't know that this is a conversation I can add too much to. No one can really ask me questions about LGBT issues and me have them really answer them with any degree of, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think.
Sometimes you just have to say, I don't feel qualified.
Yeah.
I don't feel qualified. It might be a good idea for me to sit this out and maybe go into the live chat and just ask some questions.
Yeah. And for those of you who want to get a head start on asking questions, I do have a tweet that I put out where if you want to submit a question that will definitely be read at the beginning of the stream, go ahead and reply to that tweet. The link is in the comments below. Also, I quote tweeted it in my pinned thread. And with that, I think we'll move to taglines.
Have a day, and remember, communication is key.
You pointed to yourself there, Ring, so you go first. So Ring, you do yours, then I'll do mine.
Okay. Remember, the purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think on. Too often, we forget that.
Okay. As we're talking Guardians, just remember, people, there are two types of beings in the universe: those who dance and those who do not.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
I am Groot.